Hello and welcome to episode 60. Yes, it's a decimal number, but it's not going to mark a special occasion of any particular merit, I don't think, tonight. We're on episode 60 of the CodeZone. Powerful change alert, because I have seen the light. And I had a complete change of heart about something in particular, and I thought it'd be useful to talk through the change. It involved a colossal refactoring of the code, but the sheer amount of power and new things at my disposal I can do with this change has been worth it. So let's say hello to Magetsub was first tonight, by the way. First by about 6 days, I think. Standard Int is here. Johnny G is here. Mandminster is here. Mandmister. Mister. Put my glasses on. You did a massive refactoring lately, 18 files changed. Oh, well, your numbers are a little bit bigger than mine. Maybe. We'll have to compare numbers, Standard Int. We'll have a look. In fact, why not compare numbers right now? Because I've pulled it up on the GitHub. People think I don't use GitHub, but actually I did. So there was actually 2 changes because I couldn't do it all in one go. So there was my first 32 changed files, 998 additions, and 665 deletions. When I say it was a major change, it has been a reasonably major change. So that was the first of 2 sort of major pushes. Let's have a look at the other one. And this was the second one. How do I make that appear? Did I click on that? There we are. And the second one, 1,323. I think we're in a similar ballpark there, Standard In. Yeah, two programmers doing major changes to their stuff. Well, let me talk you through the story. What's gone? You might think, you're nuts, how can you possibly do a massive change like that? Actually, it's a big change to sort of the way that we're going to represent things in the tile editing. So I'm just getting a bit tangled up in my own cables here. Let me just sort this out for a second now. All bogged down in microphones and headphones and things. Oh dear, I'm making it worse. Uh-oh. You know how this is like a slinky thing? There we go. Oh. Right. That will feel much more comfortable. Ugh. Freedom. Who else have we got? So we've got Alta, hello. And Apostolisk, hello. Oh, good to see you back, Apostolisk. I didn't see you in the last couple of streams, but it's always good to see a friendly name. Magetsub, you see, exactly, Magetsub, like huge amounts of change. I'm just going to open my beer, as usual, sponsored by Tesco, and tonight it is the no added sugar bitter shandy. We're going hardcore again tonight, aren't we? Maroc in. Howdy, always want to join. Hello, well, you're more than welcome. Tonight's, we're kind of hitting the ground running, really. We're going to be talking about a big change that I've made to the code base. Well, let's get some of this really strong beer down me first. Bixie, hello. As usual, we started with Bixie's theme tune. Still no submissions for an animation yet. Disappointed. So what happened? So in the last episode, we were looking at sort of just testing the workflow. I'd been coding a lot at work. I didn't really want to do any coding during the stream. So we started to look at actually using the application and coming up with a bunch of bugs to fix. And we created this list. And a nice list it was too. And you can see I've actually ticked off a few of them already. Basically, easy win, low-hanging fruit things I ticked off. So beer and no music. Speedy, hello. Oh, good to see you again, Speedy. So as I was working through the list, I thought some of these are not trivial things to implement. Some of them are. I'll pick some of the easy ones. And then I got to the one at the very bottom, because I actually wanted to really do this. So the idea behind this one, defining groups of tiles in a static tile source. Recall, in our application, we have a tile map, and we can put a selection in that tile map. And then we can paint with that selection. And it would be useful, for example, if your tile map contained a house, or in our case that time it had a lamp post, that there was some sort of persistent record that that lamp post was that selection. So the designer could then just go and select the lamp post from a set of things, or select the house, and just go and stamp it around as necessary. And I started to have a think about this, and realised that I'd coded myself into a corner. And that's part of the fun of being a one-lone coder. You just sort of organically develop a mess of code, and then you have to periodically prune it all back. And I'd realised I've really, well, to put it bluntly, effed up. I'd made a critical mistake with how I was representing information in the application. And I went for a quick run. And whilst I was running, because I don't actually like running, but it was boring, so I like to think about coding problems. On that run, I had a sort of the revelation. I saw the light, realised exactly what I'm doing wrong. And to coin a term of modern programming, and I'm not a particularly modern programmer, I'm going to suggest or say to you the phrase single source of truth, SSOT. That's the new Android developer in me sort of leaking out there. Let's have a look. I don't drink. It's okay, Moroccan. The alcohol content of this is 0. Been there way too many times. Oh dear. That was Morning Sun. Never fear, Speedy is here. Good. So, what is the big change? Well, in order to help sort of explain the change, I thought we would first have a look at what it was previously. And I'm not going to look at code. Instead, I'm going to pull up a OneNote I prepared earlier. Yep, I'm good. You can all remember that this is what light mode looks like, because I know none of you ever use light mode at all now. Exactly, Johnny. Yes, SSOT. See, I've become an Android dev. I can just about spell Kotlin. What was your large refactoring about standard int? I think building a compiler tool. I think I was probably, knowing you and knowing the way that you code with the snippets that I've seen, you've probably made 2,500 additions just handling the slightly different file extension, because you'll have done it to standard. Oh, Rockin'. Oh, thank you very much. That's very pleasing. Cheers. Thank you. Lord of the Rings confidence gives you way too much. Yeah, I can understand that. Right. Hedgehog of Hermes. Hello. Oh, looking at, we're getting pings and bings all over the place at the moment. What's going on? Just make sure it's not too important. Good. Oh dear. Pliskit, hello. Right, so what have I got here? So this is the sort of the structure as you've all watched it develop. And if you haven't watched it, we have a series of layers, of which one specialization of layer is a tiled layer. Remember, my 2D editor is not just about doing tiles. Oh, hello. Teggett. Oh, thank you very much, man. That's appreciated. Oh, hang on. Oh, dear me. We're going to have a lot of these pinging through now, aren't we? Thank you very much, Moroccan. Oh, dear. Right. So, well, I'm not going to keep on describing things whilst these are popping through. Right. Hang on. Those distracting you. We need more coding streamers. We do. There are a few, but I like to think some coding streams can be a little bit dull. This one included. So we try to make it more about sort of what's happened during the week, rather than let's just watch me code something slowly full of bugs in real time. So we do it a bit different. Is this deafening everybody every time there's a thing? If it's not, then I need to turn it up. Is this famous YouTuber and programmer Javid X9? Well, programmer, potentially, I think is the answer there. Annie Cater, hello. Oh, right, they're still coming in, I wonder how it does this. Does it just pick people at random from the viewer list? And Mr. Thanks. And I can see that the next one is Leo Develop. Well, thank you, Moroccan. That's very appreciated. And it will keep me in no alcohol content, no added sugar, bitter shandy from Tesco for at least a couple of days. Right, let's crack on now. The noises have stopped. Again, thank you very much, Moroccan. Good. Right, so we have this construction called a tiled layer, and I'm just grabbing my pen here, this thing here. Now, I was just saying my 2D editor is not just about tiles. We're starting with tiles because they're nice and visual, they're easy to do, and basically the audience can also kind of follow along with it. It's a bit less complicated than all the geometry stuff we've got in the pipeline. And the tile layer contained a specialized container called a tile container, of which we passed in some object that represented our tile. So in this instance here, the tile was a graphical rectangle. It was sourced from something, which we'll have a look at in a minute, but it was given a position and a size, which were in normalized texture space, and it had some function to draw itself where necessary. To accompany that, we needed a static tile source, which did sort of... I'm going to move my beer, it's kind of in the way. We did have some static tile source, which was our single source of truth. Now, this static tile source was represented as an XY grid, and from there you could select the tiles. In fact, let's go and have a look at a static tile source. It kind of looks a bit like this. So this is the editor that we had so far, and the idea is you can select something in here. Let's select something we've not already got up there. This chocolate donut, and we can go and paint it into the editor. See? Or we could select this row of sweets, and we can go and paint the whole row of sweets into the editor. So this thing in the bottom right was our static tile source, and the tiles were sort of uniquely typed and linked into it. Oh dear, what was this? Vector subscript out of range. Oh, I don't know what that is. We've got a crash there. Oh, I've no idea. That's new. That's good. A good way to start the stream. Let's have a look. Where's that crashed? Oh, interesting. Interesting. We'll come back to that in a minute because I think I know what that is. So we'll have a look. Now, where was I with my notepad? So there is a problem with this approach, is that throughout the application, in lots of places, I need to... Oh, I was trying to highlight my own words then. I need to have a big switch case block thing, which allows me to initialize these things and then select all the appropriate gubbins. And so we actually had in various locations big switch case blocks that did some sort of like reflection to try and work out what was needed at that point, whether we were constructing the class, whether we were drawing the tiles, what we were doing with them, how we were saving things, and it affected everything. And it occurred to me, well, that's all very well and good, but I wanted to add some other type to the tiled layer now. We've kind of done tiles. Let's try and add booleans, something very, very simple. And I started, and I thought, okay, let's create all these switch case blocks again. Let's go through it, and realize, hang on, we're doing this wrong. So major change time is required. Oh yeah, we got a bit of a crash sort of up there. They didn't take you to the STL stuff. Yeah, it is a bit of a drag, isn't it? I mean, you can always find it in the call stack, fairly obvious. I think I know what causes that crash. It's okay. I'm not saying everything's finished yet for tonight. So part of the problem was that in trying to be clever and using templates to do some specialist stuff, we overlooked something very basic which we could have done instead. And that is the following. Instead of static tile source, we call this static data source. Now, this is an important distinction. It's not just renaming the type. Instead of specializing this to be a tile, what we can have it is as an X and Y sort of selection matrix. We can just have something inside this static data source. So we represent all data in our application via a static data source. So if it's tiles, that's fine. We do have something like position and texture. If it's booleans, we have the boolean values. But they're always going to be represented through a 2D grid. And we'll play with that idea in a bit. So first thing to keep in mind, basically we can now store anything in our static data source. This is the bit that we're going to specialize. And that means everything else here can all disappear. We can get rid of this because all we need to store in our tiled layer now is a much simpler set of parameters. We need an ID of the static data source. We don't care about its type. We need an X and Y location into the static data source. And that's it. That's all we need. Right? So we don't need to have any type specialism at all now, because we can rely on our static data source, firstly to be our single source of truth, but it's also one location that can also handle the drawing as well. So we've got a mechanism of drawing an element, which I think I just called draw in this case. And so this is all now handled in the static data source. This frees up all of the editing tools to have no specialization at all. And also gets rid of all those templates, so the thing compiles very quickly now. Quite nice. Have a quick glance at some things here. Same. It's complaining about STL. If you want more hardcore, you can add alignment info. Maybe been meaning to add ECS to game. No, I'm not into ECS. We're not doing that. ECS. So why is this advantageous? Well, let's go and have a look at some code. Not this code, because that's awful STL stuff, but let's go and have a look at a new class that we've added in called a data source. A data source is, before it was static data source, now it's, so before it was static tile source, now it's static data source. But let's go and have a look at what this is. So I've created here static data source, static image tile. So this is the type that's going to handle tile maps sort of things. And it inherits from static data source. Let's go and have a look at what this is first. Go to definition. So a static data source, well, it doesn't really do very much. It's got some interface, so it can serialize itself, and it can create a property grid, which we've seen plenty of times so far. And it requires that 3 functions are implemented. Firstly, resize. If we actually physically resize the data source, how does that get handled? We've got this draw, which draws a single element of the data source. And if this is not all sort of clicking, it will do when we start sort of playing with it. And edit. We can edit the static data source, which is a bit strange, but you'll see why that's important. Now, all data in my application is going to be accessed through a 2D grid. So no longer are we worrying about 1D anything, it's all 2D. So the static data source has, across all static data sources, some metrics that define what that grid is. Now, if I go back to my static tiles, we can see we implement the serialization, and I go and implement these 3 things, and then I have whatever custom code I need in order to facilitate this happening. So in this case, for imagery, I have an image asset link into some link repository elsewhere in the application. It's in the asset manager in this case. Let's go and have a look at what's going on in some of these files. So the constructor does what you'd expect. It just simply resizes the array, gets all the data ready. When we're reading in from file, when it's being deserialized, we simply link that asset. The only property we've got in our static data source is this link asset, which is the link to the image. When we're saving out, that's the only asset we can save. This is going to change and might actually be something we start to talk about tonight when we're looking at these sort of custom little pockets and shapes and things that we want to put into the static tile sources. On populate property grid, so this is the grid on the side of the editor. It just gives it the properties. We've seen this before. We've talked about it. Nothing's changed here. So the fun one we get down to is draw. So let's look at the parameters that we get for draw. Firstly, we get a link into the... Whoa, oh, hang on. That's no good. Oh, this is where we're going to have all this highlighting fun now again, isn't it? We've got our link into the workspace itself, shared pointer into there, and we've got our link to our graphics context, which is effectively Pixel Game Engine. We also have then which tile, because, oh dear, come on. We can index our static data source now as just a 2D coordinate, and that's it. That's why it's so wonderful, because we don't have any type specializing at all. We're going to say to our static data source, what is at location X, Y? That's what I want you to draw. And we then pass in some parameters saying, draw it, the position, and draw the size of it. And as with all Pixel Game Engine things, there's a tint as well. If you want to make things transparent or slightly colored, you can play with those things. So the static data source is now responsible for drawing its content in the right place at the right time. In this case, we just want to go into our main image, sample the texture at the right location, and draw the textured quad at that location. We can't edit a static tile source, so that doesn't need to do anything, and resize also doesn't need to do anything, and we'll have a look why. And then we'll compare that to a different type. Let's go and boot that up. Hopefully we won't get a crash this time. Alt and Z, Cisco 211. Alt and Z to wrap it all around, fit inside the screen. Ooh, does that like do it permanently? Is that not going to undo it? Oh, you'll notice some user things. We did also talk about getting it starting up in the right places and getting rid of the bars that didn't draw. Fixed all these little gremlins. That wasn't a problem. So let's have a look at what I'm talking about. We can load up a trial workspace I've already got set up here. And in this workspace, I've got my layered construction. There we go. That's what we had before. But more importantly, we've got some static data sources now. And I've added sort of the menus to allow you to add these things as well. Let's go and have a look at the arcade items one. So we've seen this plenty of times. Let's go and drag this over here. There we go. We might get this crash again. I don't know. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. But if we select the static data source, we can see that it's populated the property grid with the one property that it has. In this case, it's the image asset selection. And I can now go and select some tiles, and I can go and draw them with the appropriate lure tool, and draw them into the array, into the layered construction. Yeah, that seems to be working fine. And we looked at how the lure is handling everything in previous episodes. If I go to now a different type, this one is just booleans. Let's pull this one up. Ah, see, there's that crash again. It's the same crash. Go and have a look. Let's quickly have a quick glance at what's going on this. Because it looks like I'm not checking for null or something. So I'm guessing one of these is bad. Look. On paint, on render, SDS boolean draw. Spec cells has 2 in. Cells is greater than 1. I suspect we're just sort of. They look okay. They look okay. Which ones? Context is fine. Draw pause. Draw size. Oh, here we go. We've got a 4 coming. Oh, you see? Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Oh no. Oh. Right, so we're not actually checking the y-axis there. Very good. Oh, at least we find something. Let me get to that point again. We'll try again. Sometimes you want to see stuff fitted. Well, let's try this whilst it's coming. So what was it? It was Alt and this best not. This not be a problem. Alt and Z. Just went bing. Didn't do anything. Is it beneficial with a large project like this to try and design your code such function signatures remain within a certain number of columns, or is it just one of those things? I was looking at standard. When standard int says something, he's usually right. Now, in this case, that's all right. It's v-tile and tiles. So tiles is sort of the overall size of the array. So that is y times width. Oh, you're right. I've also got this down here as well. V-tile, y-tile. Oh dear. Oh dear, dear, dear. Has this all crept in? You see, this is why I like standard in watching these streams. Ultimately, I'll have to put in some kind of credit for helping us out like this. So we've got our Y checks, we've got our X checks. Okie dokie. Okay, let's just double check down here. So I do it all right there. Yeah, that's fine. Do it okay. That's so. I'm wondering if that's actually copied and pasted in from. Oh, it doesn't really apply to this one. It's a bit different on this size. Okay. I wonder what I was doing there. Obviously, I was tired. Try compiling that. Yeah, pretty much, Johnny G. Yeah, it's not VS Code. Yeah, I don't use VS Code. VS Code is it's not real, is it? Right, let's try that again. It's interesting that I've not encountered that before, so whether I've been changing something half asleep, I don't know. Let's load this up. Hopefully we fixed it anyway. Constructions, there we go. So we've got our construction back. Let's pull up our static data sources. So we've got Boolean type and we've got arcade items type. Drag these over just so it's visible all at once. Down there. There we go. So the Boolean type, we can only have true or false. So in order to represent that, I've created a grid. Let's select this so we can see what they are. Just created a grid. It's 2 by 1. It has its own properties. I'm going to draw things blue for true and red for false. So you can specify that. In fact, you can see how live this all becomes with no additional coding. If I change this to green, everything that should be true changes to green because we've got a single source of truth. Now, the construction here doesn't care about the type. That's the wonderful thing. It just says, I'm using this data source down here, type Boolean, and I'm indexing this location. That's all I need to know. That's all I need to store in this map. How that information is ultimately used by the end programmer, well, that's up to them. But right now, that's the only mapping it cares about. And how does this render itself? Well, the static data source is responsible for rendering Booleans. Like if we go back up here, this one, and choose the arcade items, the only information it has is which asset pack it's a part of. And because it's a single source of truth, we can do quite cool things now. So if we specify the offset, for example, we can see the offset changes across the entire map. So we can make sort of broad sweeping changes. I think it's pretty cool. We can do other things too. So if something previously was true, I have the facility to edit these things. If we control and right click, that's what it is, control and right click, I can change that to false. Because it's single source of truth, it changes everywhere it's ever referenced. So it's a nice thing to do. So let's say we wanted to invert all of our truths to false. I can go and change this one over to true. There we are. We've changed them all around. Very, very nice. We went from a console to a web view to display text. Yes, I know. Even worse, right? It's not getting better. It is very nice. Right? So this is actually quite a powerful thing. Now, what also, and hopefully we shall demonstrate the point tonight, because I'm going to add a new type to the application. We're going to do some coding in CodeZone. At the moment, Pixel Game Engine 3 it can't render text. So what would be nice would be to add numbers and characters and things. So we could sort of display values in the cells. I can't easily do that right now. But we were starting to talk about colours and things in a previous episode. So I thought what would be useful is to add a third type. And let's have a look at how simple it is. That allows us just to select from a palette of colours. Because it's not too dissimilar to the Boolean type, but we can talk through then the changes that are necessary. Now, one of the other cool things, let's talk, why is this a necessary thing? Why bother with this 2D thing? Booleans can only be true or false, so why is that necessary? I'll show you why it's necessary. So if I select the Boolean type, and I go to tiles here, and let's say I specify 8 by 8, it all comes alive. There's the original true and false. So the reason you implement that resize function is for exactly that. Do you want the data to be persistent? What does it mean to change size as a data source? And let's say in here I have a selection of things. I can't actually select multiple stuff at the moment and edit it, so I have to do this, sadly, a bit of the slow way round. Obviously an improvement to make, so let's just say we've got this. There we go. So there's a pattern. We've now got a pattern in our data source buffer. Well, I can select that whole pattern, and with the right painting tool, I can paint the whole pattern in. Right? And that's really nice. So if we wanted to paint in Booleans, we can now do that too. Now, the other major benefit is the Lua tooling genuinely doesn't care about anything at all now. So let's say I wanted to draw a circle of Booleans with no editing anything, I can. Oh, I need to actually select the source. There we go. I can draw a selection of Booleans, no problem at all. That's great. If we wanted to use, for some reason, what did we call it? We called it 9. Yeah, 9 patch stuff in a Boolean array. We can do these things. This is great. So all the selection tools, the flood fill tools, the drawing tools are completely type agnostic as well. We get that for free. So you can tell I'm very excited about this. What was the name of the PG default font again? It is actually a little custom font. It's inspired by the NES, but it was actually all hand drawn. Is the application written in using WX widgets? It's or good old Windows 32. It is WX widgets, so it should all actually be reasonably easy to compile on Linux. This. So by fundamentally shortcut TLDR, is that right? TLDR. By removing any kind of type dependence in our constructions, we now got this very flexible way of editing things, and we've sort of abstracted away all of the complexity of the individual types, but encapsulated them in a nice little group somewhere for something else to worry about. There's one final cool thing which we can get out of all of this. We've got currently static tile sources. Of course, if you had animated tiles, you'd need something slightly different. So we could envisage, or I envisage, a situation where an animated tile sheet or some sort of moving source changes every X milliseconds or whatever, because it's a single source of truth, actually starts to animate itself as well. So we've kind of got animation for free. There's a little bit of work to do around it, but the guts of it has already happened. This was a necessary change. It was great because once you've coded yourself into a corner, it's only then do you think, oh crap, I've got to get myself out of this mess. Let's take a step back, let's take a deep breath, let's actually look at what the program is requiring of its structure. It also meant I could take out loads of files. I got rid of the tile container, I got rid of the individual tile specializations, I got rid of all these switch case blocks, I got rid of, I did some prototype stuff to start linking all the Lua tooling, because I was getting quite worried. How should my painting tools handle the different types of data? It's all gone away. And also, I guess another benefit that we've got out of it is we've got multiple types of things in a single 2D array for free. It's a really good approach. I quite like it. Lots and lots of benefits. You can tell I'm very, very enthusiastic. In fact, this really motivated me to crack on with the project. It came alive again, which was a necessary boost that I needed. I'm going to just have a quick glug of shandy. So, yes, so I think tonight what we'll do is I like the idea of adding some sort of just a colour type, because I think that's going to be quite useful in everything that ever needs to reference colours. It's a single source of truth, so if we change the colour red to colour blue, it should change everywhere that is relying on that data source. And there's nothing stopping us having multiple data sources of the same type with different layouts to facilitate specific customizations. I'm not saying anything was insincere, Alter. Your function signatures are quite long, and I'm curious to know if it's a design which is even worthwhile trying to avoid when working on a large code base like this. I'll be honest, I don't even look at the functions. In fact, that's a really interesting. I've never really thought of it like this before. I don't look at the functions. You just notice I entirely navigate via file. It's just not something I actually care about. I just know that they're there. Yeah, I mean that's a bit of a drag because it's like that, but yeah, who cares? I think when you've been staring at these things long enough, you just sort of know what it is. Also, you've got to remember, right? I'm currently live streaming a bunch of code, right? So it looks like this, but in reality, I'm coding like this. So it's not as bad as it seems. I don't choose to program with it zoomed in like this. I like it like this, and some people complain. I've actually had comments on the YouTube channel going, "Oh, hey man, why are you zoomed in so much all the time?" It's simply because I know people will look at this on mobile phones, look at it on tablets. They might be on a second screen somewhere in the distance, and there's nothing more infuriating than a streamer or a video of code where you can't see anything at all, and the code is like this. It's even worse when they're on like a 1440 monitor and it looks like this on the screen. You think, yeah, you have no idea what you're coding. I can't see what you're typing. What's the point? So I like it nice and big because it should make it a bit easier to follow along. Yeah, you see, that's another thing that I do standard in. Typically, I will always have sort of two windows of code, right, like this. So yeah, I that's my standard way of coding, because I do think that sort of widescreen monitors don't lend themselves to coding very much. But I don't do it on stream for one. I've got to zoom out, but also it starts to look a bit cluttered for anybody that is trying to follow along. And I appreciate on these big projects, it's difficult to just dip in and dip out every other week and still follow the code. That's why I think it's nice to do sort of summaries and roundups rather than actual coding. But tonight we're going to have a crack at this. We're going to try and do some coding and create a new data source type. And I'm going to do it by stealing code all over the place. So let's get that back to about there. That's why you mentioned word wrap. I don't know. I don't have to. The function names are long, but the code isn't. You missed the mega if and the mega macro, but they're not good things. I think there's this limitation. Oh, you've got to limit your code to 80 characters. Nonsense. Absolute toss. Simply because that was fine back in 1985 when you only had 80 characters across your display, and for some reason that propagated onto terminal emulation units, which limited to 80 characters. But these days, it's ridiculous. Menu, edit, advanced, word map. It's per document based. On line 104, I'd also almost consider a mega if. You see, that's the thing, right? I do a mega if, and everybody goes, oh, you can combine all that into one if. I go, okay, right, well, that's what it's going to look like. That said, it did sting me, probably by being half off the screen. Anyway, we're getting distracted. So I'm going to add a new data source class. Now, I'm going to do it my way, which is the way everybody hates to do it. I use the class wizard, I know. But oddly, I only use the class wizard to create two files. I don't even call the classes this. So we're going to call this one color. Data source color. I don't care about filling in any of that, because the first thing I do is actually just delete the content of the file. And it goes and puts these wherever it wants, so then I have to go and find them. There we are. And I'm going to pull these back up into the appropriate filter up here. There we go. Tell you what, that's one thing Visual Studio's got right. Dragging and dropping in this list. Sometimes it's pretty awful in Windows to sort of get it to auto-scroll. It works quite nicely here. And so I'm going to take the simple Boolean one, which is one we've already got. And I'm going to go Control-A, Control-C, and smash that in there. And then we'll do some refactoring. So let's zoom in a little bit. So static data source for inheritance, this is going to be SDS color. And because I am from the United Kingdom, we spell colour correctly with a U. I'm just going to fill all of this in. Don't need to change those. Don't need to change any of those. And we'll have a look at what we're going to do here. It's going to be a vector of uint8. It's going to be a vector of OLC pixels, because fundamentally that's what we're going to have. It's a 2D array of colours. I'm probably going to need to create a new data source type. Let's go and have a look. Peak definition. Do I even have one which is color? I don't, you see. So this is, we're doing everything. Data source. Now, why do I still need this sort of this enumeration here? That's simply because when I'm constructing the thing in the first place, when I load it from a file, the file will tell me you are using a tile map, you're using a Boolean map, whatever. I still need something to go and construct it off. So there's still one point in the code where I have to create the right class, but everything else, all the editing stuff, is now doesn't care. So I'm going to put that to color. I'm going to try and spell it correctly. To color 2. So one of the things was to append numbers to the end of that. Not got that far yet, Bixie. Sorry. And then I can go to the CPP file, which is fine. That's that bit we can keep. But what I'm going to go and do is I like to then select all of that. There we go. Somewhere vaguely there, and go to quick actions and refactoring and create all the stuff. And you see it goes away and it goes and creates all the functions I need, all named appropriately in that CPP file. Yeah, I don't think we'll ever escape the factory function. Thank you, Annie. Yes, yes. I was watching Annie code on Sunday morning and realised, hang on, this guy codes a bit like me in a completely chaotic, haphazard, but ultimately correct way. Annie, don't ever, ever forget that last bit. Are you getting any help with this? It's all on my own at the moment. I mean, this is in terms of things that I do. This is not a huge project, right? There's lots of files and things, but it's mostly mucking about. Most of these files are experimental as we go along. The plan will be, because it's all externally Lua scripted in the cool bits, that actually the Lua scripts will sort of be open to everybody to do whatever they want. Because we'll need different file type handlers, we'll need different export formats, we'll need all these different things. There's chat, but we don't help. Yeah, that's typically it. It's not called chat, it's called derailment. You prefer an actual directory structure? Yeah, I agree with you, Standard In, and this actually reflects my underlying data structure, so underlying file structure. So we've gone and created these functions. We now need to go and fill them in one by one. And I'm going to cheat a little bit because I'm obviously on a live stream. This one over here, I'm just going to drag this off to a window over here so I can sort of see both and bring in the bits as and how I need them. So the first thing I'll need to do is construct my parent class. So we've created this new thing here. We need to go and bring that in. Now, this is an interesting alter. There you go. See, I do actually put some things on new lines. I always put these constructions on new lines. Now, I can't seem to get away from needing to do this, but something needs to initialize that vector to begin with. And so in this case, it's this resize function. So let's go and populate the resize function. I can go and steal most of that code from the Boolean, but we will need to change things a little bit. Let's have a look at this resize code. So resize comes in with a new size, and that says whatever data structure you've got behind the scenes, you're going to have some more tiles with it now. I've chosen to deliberately keep the 2D mapping rather than just always sort of reducing that to a one-dimensional index. I like it. The whole thing is meant to be 2D stuff. I think it may be more flexible, and at the moment it allows me to pass in two distinct bits of information rather than just one, so perhaps it's potentially more powerful. So if we resize and we don't know what we're resizing to, then I'll need to resize to a default color. Now, what should the default color be? Well, I'm going to pick magenta for the time being. Oh, I need something in a different namespace in PGE3, isn't it? Oh, good. So we're going to resize that, and we'll color everything sort of pink. Same applies here when we're creating a new map. There we go. That's going to, yeah, so if it was empty, we just create a new map and make it that big. Right, what have we got here? Why? Because that's a different type. I'll see pixel. Now, the reason I create a new one and then copy it over is I don't want to lose the content of what's already there. That might be a useful mapping. We're just making the map a bit bigger or a bit smaller. Yeah, Speedy, that's right. So it's all it's about. It's just make it a bit easier for the viewers to see what's going on. That's why I don't have lots of clutter and things on the screen either. Once we've created the new map, I then copy the things over. I clear the existing map and then copy it over. And then at this point, this is quite important in my resize function, I need to update the current number of tiles in this static data structure. So quite an important function, the old resize function. Right, the next one is not as difficult to implement, but let's go and have a look. So we'll look at draw next. So whereas in the Boolean code, all we can do is draw true or false, and we've got two colours to choose from. This is even easier when we're looking at creating an array of colours. I can just sample the vector directly. So I'm going to get rid of all of that and just have it like that. So whenever we want to draw a representative sample of the colour, we use this fill rectangle routine, and we're provided with the location. And it kind of assumes that whatever calls this has also set up the context and the background and everything else where things are going to be drawn. So we can just sort of blindly draw it. Excuse me. Edit we'll come back to, because I do want to be able to edit the palette, of course, but let's get the sort of the nuts and bolts of it working first. Right, properties. What do we need to do for properties? On populate property grid. So this is the function that is called. When we select this particular work object in the editor, we need to add to the growing list of properties the properties specific for this thing. So we'll give it a name, which is color. But I don't think there are any specific properties for a color map. So at the moment, I'm just going to leave that blank. It's even easier. You'll see for the Boolean layer, we had two properties. What is the color when it's true, and what is the color when it's false? We just don't have that here. Well, arguably, you could put in a color for what is the default one for new cell, but nah, who cares? You know, you just draw over that straight away. So that's a nice easy win. The next one down is on property change. Pull this over. On property change. So you'll notice that I call the parent class because that does have things it needs to populate. In this case, it's the dimensions of the grid that represents this 2D object. Again, on property change, it doesn't need to do anything. I've not got any properties to change. So I could just leave it blank, but for the sake of if I copy and paste this into something else later on, at least the code is kind of there working. Right, so all we got next is object load and object save. So we need to do some serialization. How does this object save itself? And have you noticed something really cool? We're all in one file. All of this is together. It's not scattered all over different places anymore, which is it's a big step up. So let's have a look. What do we need to do for, let's save the object to begin with. Well, because this is part of a hierarchy of things that have other properties, we need to give the superclass the opportunity to save itself first. So that's what exactly on work object saved will do. It passes in, we basically pass in this little nugget from all these functions and saying, please go and serialize yourself to this nugget. Now, this time it's a little bit different because we need to save a whole bunch of colors depending on the size of that vector. So I'm going to create a loop. We know how many tiles are in that vector already because they're in this vtiles vector, which is an x and y size, the dimensions of the map. And I can call the area function on that, which just multiplies them together. And that tells me how many elements are in the vector. Then I can simply remember, this is using the OLC data file format, so if you're a bit unsure what these properties are, that's all in the utils folder, even in PG2, and there's a whole video on YouTube about this file format. So I grab tiles, in this case is I grab a T in the, we'll have a look at one of the source files in a bit. This is going to be the index to how we're going to define this particular color. And we're saving this location, aren't we? So I'm just going to bring this in because it's kind of already written, which is nice. But I just need to change these a little bit. So rather than DFP, it's just going to be T. Yeah. And this time it is, we need to get the right location. So vec cells I. Done. There we go. Let's just grab all of those and do vec cells I. So I'm basically going to store these things in my file as one-line items. T is the index, and we're going to say for element 0, store the red, element 1, green, etc., etc. of that particular pixel, and that's it. So that will then go and serialize that whole vector to the file. Let's go and sort of implement the opposite of this and read the data in from the file. So work object load. There we go. We'll change this over to a load. Now, a little bit different. We know that vtiles then is already populated again because work object load has read that through the hierarchy. We don't have to worry about doing it twice. But this time, it's just a little bit different that we want to grab that bit and we want to paste that there equals, and we're going to change this over to a get int. And we're going to put those in as the index. Well, that's it. So that will now read in the same data. Easy enough. That's why I like my file format. Easy to work with. With nothing particular to erase, because vec cells is the only sort of dynamic memory, and that's all encapsulated in a vector. That's going to sort itself out. So the next stages are to link this into the rest of the editor. Let's go and have a look at that. There's a little bit messy, but we'll go and have a look. So to do this, right, we've got some functions that we need to add into mainframe. Mainframe is the main dialogue that you can see. And you'll start to see there's some patterns here. Very, very simple ones that we'll probably need to duplicate. I'm trying to think where to actually bring in workspace. So where am I actually going to include this? Well, workspace is sort of the mother class. Data source color. There we go. Now, one of the other nice things is that the data sources, because of the way this is set up, there's no specific types required anymore. I don't need different data sources for all of the different types, which was the original intention. So to have a different vector for static data, tile sources, different one for static Boolean sources, different one. Now, again, that's all sort of collapsed. In every single front, this is worked out as an improvement. We'll go and have a look at the workspace, because the workspace needs to be able to load these data sources. Now, this is the only case now where we've got one of these sort of switch blocks. And that's simply what Annocator was referring to before. Ultimately, we need a factory somewhere to actually create this information. So I'm just going to duplicate that and smash in the color. SDS color. There we go. And I don't need to even change the saving, because that's all just handled anyway. There's nothing to do there. So you just iterate through all of the static data sources and blast them to the file. Because the static data source knows how to save and load itself. The workspace doesn't care. Right. So the next thing, don't forget to make a factory class for your factory class. Well, hang on. Whoa. This isn't Java, Megetta. Next thing, yes, we've got to create some functions in mainframe. Sort of jumping about a bit here, because I'm conscious that we want to get through it, and I want to see it work before we finish today. Mainframe. So I'm just going to quickly duplicate all of this sort of thing. Now, why do I have these broken out into different functions? It's a good question. In fact, in one instance, you'll see I don't need to anymore, but just for the sake of expediency today, I'm going to add these things in. This actually makes no sense anymore. Add tile layer. You'll see why. And I've got one down here. Yeah, so I have one of the patterns I use when I'm working with WX widgets is also all the WX widget stuff. I put in the natural event handlers, which look a bit like this. But I always like to have a manually callable function, just in case you want to call it from something that isn't part of the event chain of WX widgets. But it does mean you get a little bit of code duplication like this. But ultimately, it means I can also script all of this stuff. So if we wanted to perhaps have a console built into the application later on, it's easy to map all of these functions to some sort of external script, which I think adds power to the stuff. Elias04, you're my new best friend. I don't think anybody has ever said things like that before. Nobody likes my my coding style. I'm so happy. Let's have a look. So I've got all these functions which I've not implemented now. I need to go and give them some bodies. So let's quick actions and refactoring. Go. Create your thing. Ugh. If this is why I like to do multiple ones. I don't like this thing popping up every time. Oh, cancel. Go away. Right, you just go up this. It just distracts me. It's probably moved me from my flow there. Right. Go and do it. Go down here. Do you know what? This is why I prefer to do it like this. Quick actions, refactoring, create definitely, because it doesn't then sort of move you away from the code. It gives you the option to go and mess around with it later on. So we've added 4 blank functions to the underside here, and you can see there's easy patterns to follow. Let's just zoom in a little bit there. And I'm just going to follow this pattern, blindly cutting and pasting code. What can possibly go wrong? That's the first one. Let's go down here. Add SDS course. I'm just going to take this code. Now, this actually does require sort of the specialism here. This, again, it's a factory. So this is where we're creating a brand new instance of this thing. It's not been loaded or anything. This is actually adding it to the workspace. Other than that, it can stay the same. So there's scope here to reduce this duplication. That comes later. I'm really not that bothered. And add tile layer. This was it. So this is a fun one. So here I've got a function. This is called when we want to add layers to the construction, because originally there would have to have been tight. That's no longer the case. So this code is exactly the same as this code. There's literally no difference. Well, at least I don't think there's any difference. No, there's no difference. So stupidly, foolishly, whatever, I will sort of refactor this out. I'm just going to copy all of that and stick that in there. It's just one of these sort of beautiful things that's kind of falling out. It's getting rid of this code duplication all over the place. Nice and easy to work with. It's not completely unreadable. Right. So the last thing to do is we need to set up the WX widgets file. Hang on a sec, because that's actually a little bit more fiddly. Why have I not got a thing? Form builder. Now, I've got like 3 versions of this installed. I happen to know that this one here, I think, and then I click this. Yeah, they're all the same. The people cringe at the way that I work. Have I loaded the right one? We shall see. It's loading. It's loading. Where's it gone? The icons appeared. Yes, that was the right one. 3.10.1. Good. See, that's the one with the stuff on the side. So I go and pull this up here, because I've still tied in sort of the menus for doing this kind of thing. Do you need the other versions? No. You don't want to know. So let's go and duplicate some of these things just to add them into the mix. So yeah, you're on there, and so it's not Boolean 1. We'll add this as color. Color. There we go. And we need to also add in the event, so that's that function there. Yeah, we should change that over. So I actually copied over the function name. That's good. Okie dokie. So, oh, hang on. I've not been pressing enter, have I? Yeah, it's a new thing in one of the later versions. You've got to press enter after you've changed the property. Actually, you can see it doesn't actually sort of absorb it. There we go. And here we'll add another one of these. Now, this is completely irrelevant. I'm doing this for no reason at all other than I've been a fool. Not for the first time. Add that in. Now let's go to the events and let's add that in. Right. Okay. I think that's good. Now, cryptically, I'm going to do some sort of silent in the background magic now, because what I need to do is this is the bit where I just need you to sort of all look away from the screen and whistle something or hum something like it. You know, nothing to see here. I need to go into the file that you're not allowed to edit and edit something. There we go. I just need to take out all of the oh, the filth. Right. Yeah. Again, I'm not going to get bogged down in why that's the case either. Right. So, have we done everything? Thank you, Annie. Yes, exactly. I don't know why I need to do this. That's the worst bit. I can only assume I've at some point accidentally clicked a flag in WX Form Builder, which is handling the event slightly differently than it was. They're not tidying themselves up properly, so I'm just not having them tidy themselves up at all at the moment. Right, I think with all of those changes, let's go and see what the state of play is. Let's click build. No doubt I'll mess something up somewhere, so we'll have to wait for some of the errors. Thank you, Brambrizzle. That's yeah. Nobody saw anything there, right? That's just coding going on. Just coding. Good. So you can see it's compiling in, so that's kind of good. We've not had any errors sort of thrown at us. Because we made quite a few changes there in fairly critical locations, we'll have to have a reasonably large compile this time. But there's no templates to compile, so things do actually happen a bit quicker than usual. The OS is exactly standard in. I've been saying this for years. Nobody ever takes me on. It will. OS will clean it up. Well, like, you want your memory full anyway. Empty memory's doing nothing. You're just wasting your money if your memory's got nothing in it. I've started a little side project on the compile theme music. I'm going to be using Windows IPC named pipes to trigger some music and some sparkles to play whilst we're waiting for compiles. I'll have to come up with a theme tune of some description to have playing whilst I'm compiling. See, you're all in agreement. Good. I know you're such a sensible audience. Of course you don't want empty memory doing things. Channel Mouse, I like the way you're thinking. We could easily get more cars on the road. Oh, here's Bixie. Oh. As you can see, it's quite a big chunky one, this one. We did change some fairly critical stuff. So if we're adding sort of a new fundamental type to the application, that's got to get compiled in various locations. It's, you know, a big change adding a new primitive data source to the application. But what's nice is it seems to be compiling anyway. And now, we won't be able to edit this just yet. I just want to see, does it compile and does it render? Do we have the options? Have we linked up the menu properly to see the things that we want? So that's how far we're going to get. And then we'll try adding just a really quick editor, if I can even remember what the code might be for that. Good, success. Let's click play. I'm going to load up my sort of dummy workspace. New 2. So that was the first thing that happened. This new way of laying out the tiles is completely incompatible with what we had before. So static data sources, constructions, there's the construction. Let's go to resource, add static data source. I can now add color. Nothing's added. Nothing's added. Why has it not worked? Let's go and find out why the event wasn't working. Probably something to do with me not clicking away from the thing. Static tiles, color, add SDS, boolean. Okay, good. So hopefully it is calling the requisite Windows event. Let's follow it through. We're in debug mode. That's what it's for. Let's go to add SDS color here. Let's see, does this ever get called? This is coding for fun, though. That's the difference. I'm not going to sort of load the program. I'm just going to go straight in and go to resource, add static data source, color. Okay, so we're not actually receiving that event. Let's go and work out what's going on there then. On menu, add tile. Oh, did we miss a series of... Yeah, we did. There it is. So empty. Uh-oh. I was relying on the little... I don't think you can see it on the stream. Just behind that very handsome chap in the top corner, you've got some code up here. It kind of tells you what you're supposed to change next. And it's an infinitesimally small pixel that I have to look at. It's bad enough. So that's why we weren't actually seeing it being added into the environment, because we weren't adding it into the environment. Color. There we go. Now, hopefully, it should just be a single file compile list. We'll see. Yeah, good. Try that again. And the default environment does actually have things. So let's just, before we jump into loading, add static data sort color. There we go. Now, we did say sort of a pinkish colour. Don't forget, when we've not got anything selected, it's slightly darkened. And we should be able to pull up our construction and go construction, add a tile layer. These are irrelevant. It doesn't matter, so that's going to disappear. It's just going to be a tiled layer. For the sake of argument, we'll select that. It really doesn't matter. They're now sort of type invariant, the layers. Let's pull up our colour static data source on one side and our construction on the other. And if I go to Lua and pick Basic Paint, I'm now painting colours into the construction. So this is really nice, right? We've not had to sort of change anything to do with the editing or really how that handles the fundamental types. Our data source has handled all of that for us. So what we want to do now is add some editing feature to this to allow us to change the colour of a specific cell. Let's go and do that very quickly before we finish up. Yeah, okay. Let's have a think. Where do we... Well, we only need to look in one place to do anything to do with our static data source. It's in the static data source CPP file. And we have edit here. And right now we do nothing. But what I can do is prompt a WX color selection dialog. Let me see if I've got one of those to hand. So this was a WX color picker. It's not color picker control. Color select dialog. What's it called, guys? What's the thing called? WX color dialog. Get color from user. Does that actually exist? Oh, it does exist. Does it exist? I don't know. Does it exist? Get color from user. Returns the color chosen by the user. Well, we can try and use that. Hi Jay, is the indicator of what to add next hidden behind your vid something? It's standard within VS. So if you is it going to be on here? Yeah. So if code gets added, and you might have seen I used things like the create definitions function. See how it's put this? Let me just get rid of some of I can't even see the stream anymore. It adds these sort of little indicators to the code map in the scroll bar, and they're quite handy to see. Right, I need to fill in that one, that one, that one, that one, and that one. That's where it's put them, and I'd missed one because it was so small relative to the size of the file. And that's all that happened. Right, get color from user. I don't think I've ever used this before. Let's see how this works. So I need this include color dialog. Okay. And I need to... There is no example code for this that I'm looking at on this website. So we'll see, what happens? WX get color from user. Oh, it does exist. That's interesting. Which window are we going to give it? Yeah, null pointer, don't care. What's the initial color? Should probably be the color that's already there at that location. Okay. Let's have a quick glance at this. So what we're getting in basically is just an index. Remember, the tile is just a coordinate now. There's no type information associated with it. So let's make sure that we've got everything. Oh, hang on. I'm changing the wrong place. I'm changing the wrong file. Undo. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, oh, back up. That's the one that we want to edit. There we are, edit. So let's put that back in. Make sure I'm doing this in the right place. Yeah, color dialog. So we'll do the same sort of thing just to make sure that our vector of cells is legit. See, that's how I ended up duplicating that error all over the place. Just sort of smash it out like that. Now we want to present a... Now, I'm using OLC pixels for all my color representation behind the scenes, but WX widgets requires a WX color, so we'll just have to quickly do a conversion. We'll call that C, and I shall, I think, auto P, which is going to be the color that already exists at this location, vex cells, v tile dot y times v tiles dot x plus v tile dot x. So we're picking that particular cell, forgot the equal sign. And that's the one that we're going to change ultimately, but I think I can just specify directly the RGB components. Red, green, blue, and alpha. Yeah, it doesn't actually allow you to choose alpha in the selection dialog, at least not by default, so we may need to play with that. P.R, P.G, P.B, P.A. So that converts over our colour from OLC format to WX widgets format. Now we can do our get colour from user. Get colour from user. Maybe I should start doing streams in a northern accent. Null pointer. Initial colour is what we've just specified, C. This gets a bit confusing. What is the caption going to be? Well, it's going to be select colour. A bit pointless, maybe? Don't know. Select colour. And I'm not interested in the... all these WX widgets things give you a custom data field. So I don't know what happens if you select cancel. I don't really know what it's supposed to return. So this looks like it returns a colour directly. New colour. And then we'll need to set our P back to, so P dot R equals, oh, here we go into WX widgets land, red. Ugh. Right. R G B A. New colour. Green, blue, alpha. It's a mess, isn't it? I ended up making conditions like that into functions, even in OLC, because I cancel it. Yeah. I don't know what happened. Right? This is probably why I didn't know this function exists. If the user clicks the dialog away, firstly, how do I know if they've cancelled? How do I know that they've cancelled the operation? And what colour does it return? I might change that to actually doing it the proper way. I didn't realise there was a convenience. It is a function. At least it's not some awful WX widgets macro again. Right, so hopefully that will update the cell at that location with those colours. Is there anything that could go wrong? Let's have a look. And now the nice thing is I can change the data source, and it only needs to compile the data source. It doesn't need to compile lots of things all over the project. This is all win, 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 win. It's great stuff. I'm just going to minimize that window so I can see what's happening. Right, let's try that. So we need to have our static data source. Let's go and add a new one in color. Let's just see if the edit works to begin with. So I'll select a cell. Well, I don't need to actually select a cell. I can just right click on there. There we are, basic colors, orange. Let's go and put that there. Let's choose the one next to it. Basic colors, let's choose blue. Yeah, these are match. I've got an eye for this sort of thing, haven't I? Though a beautiful palette we're selecting here. We'll have sort of snot green and yellow. Okay. And now let's just double check that it does kind of, if I choose this one. Oh good, it is actually loading up. So we did get the initial colour correct. But you see there's no alpha selection. So I don't really know what to do about that yet. We may have to slightly modernise the colour selection dialog. Now, there's nothing also stopping me having in this window, because I can, that's another bonus we didn't actually talk about. This window that's rendering the static data source is also type agnostic. It doesn't care. It just calls that draw your cell function for a particular cell. So I've not even had to edit the editing code of the static data source itself for this to work. It's just all good. I'm really pleased with this. So we've got some colors here. Let's go to a construction and we'll add in tile layer. Again, that's irrelevant to those things. Let's add in a few more tiles. So I think this time we'll have, we're only in debug mode, so I'm not going to chance things too much. We'll have 64 by 32 tiles, like that. And we can have our color map over here. Let's drag you over. Don't know why it defaults to a different tab when we do things like that. Go to our construction. I've actually lost my color map. There it is. Zoom. There we go. So I've got my colors chosen in here. So things we can do. We know that our lure tools, rectangle, if I choose that, let's pick blue. We've got it filled. We can select there, and we can paint. That's quite nice. Let's pick this one. Let's pick sort of a sandy colour. And this time we'll just have a regular brush, basic paint. So we've got a bit of an island or something around here in the sea. Very nice. And on our island, where we might have a tree. We've not got a green in here, so let's just quickly smash a green in. We might need a green. Okay. And we'll select the green. Yeah, have a nice palm tree thing going on there. So we've potentially got now a very basic art editor, pixel editor. Construction is not meant to be a tile map. This is meant to be a generic purpose 2D editor of things. We can also start to do some of the stranger stuff. So we can select entire palettes of colours, of course. And we can choose with our paintbrush, spray paint, that was it, wasn't it? So sort of like randomly select colours. Again, the lure tooling doesn't care. It just does its basic thing. We can put in the sun. So let's put in a nice sunset. Let's have this colour. Whatever's going to be at this location, we'll have as the sun setting. Circle. There we are. So we'll put that there. Magetsub's already getting very excited about this. You can feel it already. Oh, don't want a circle. Oh, see, I don't have delete yet. I don't have a way of undoing tiles. No, that's not unimportant things. I'm just going to sit that there. And we shall paint. Keep selecting the flood fills. I don't have any flood fills to choose. I'll also select you there. Now, so some of the cool things that we can do is, of course, if this was the cell that was our sun, I can edit this single source of truth moment, hopefully. Well, it changes that particular colour everywhere that it's referenced. Works quite nicely. And we can also then add another layer. Let's add another layer. So we'll add it on top, so we can see that this is the layer up here now. The active layer is what is the layer that's currently the grid is drawn around. Yeah, so I can draw things on top. I can move things behind as well. So let's also put in this layer to be 64 by 32. 64 by 32. Ah, that was the size of the pixels. I've forgotten what these should be. What are they? 100 by 100. That one. This one is 64 by 32. 64 by 32. Okay, so we've got a new layer. Let's pick something obvious. Pick some beams. And we're going to have our paint. No, we're not. We're going to have line drawing tools. And I'm going to take some beams coming out of the sun here whilst it's setting. And then I can hopefully move the layer up and it goes behind the sun. Perfect. We're getting all this for free now. Job done. Well, we were saying channel mouse. Yeah, that's actually one of the things you can do. We could potentially have a dynamic layer type, which does have some sort of changing single source of truth. Let me close some of these windows down. Yeah, a massive refactor, and I'm pretty pleased with how it's panned out. Sunbeams are brighter than the sun. Okay. Yeah, I'd like to see you draw a better sunset. I'm pretty pleased with how that's panned out. So it gave me a lot of motivation to carry on with the project, and hopefully I'm going to be moving away from tiles. We're going to start looking firstly at the exporting tools, and then we're going to start following that with the real purpose of what this editor is all about. So that's the bit I'm looking forward to the most, is when we start getting into the vector stuff that works alongside all of these things. So until then, thank you very much. I'll see you next. Oh, thank you for all of the subscriptions. There was quite a few gifted by Moroccan at the start. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. Will keep me in Tesco own brand shandy for the next few days. Right. Until then, take care. Bye bye.